Welcome to the Mark Cameron Show. We have conversations with people making their mark, discover how they do it, and what the future of their work is. This week, my guest is Joel Enoch. Joel's an award-winning triathlon coach based in Edinburgh who's competed for the GB age group triathlon team at World and European Championships. We're going to get into some conversations around discipline, nutrition, and 5 things that can kill you. Let us know what you think. So, you broke your hand, bro.
I know, and I just shook yours. What a nightmare. But it's okay, as I say, we got away with it. It was
How did you break your hand?
Oh, where do we have to start with this story? I just was an idiot and punched a punch bag, and it just rolled it, and it cracked, and that's that.
Okay.
And it was a shame, because I was in basically the best swim shape I've been for about 5 years, and then just had to stop swimming for a few weeks.
Because you punched a punch bag wrong?
Yeah. Because I had that Rocky moment of just...
Did you go see Creed or something?
I had just been to see Creed. I should have known better, shouldn't I, really? What an absolute doofus.
Wow, okay. So, you punched a punch bag, broke your hand.
Yeah.
And that's not very useful because you're a triathlon coach, right?
And it's my dominant hand, yeah. So, like, the next day I'm realising, okay, it's in the splint and I've got to type. I can't really type, and I've got to write the set on the board.
Yeah.
I can't really do that. And I can't pick up my backpack, and I can't lay out all of the turbos. Basically, can't do anything. So, but yeah, it was fine, and also it could have been much worse. So
right.
I'm very thankful that it wasn't any worse than it was, and also 8 weeks to the day, I think, and I'm pretty pain free now. So
wow,
it's
good.
all right. I'm
I'm
just
glad.
being careful with it.
We didn't just re-break it there, did we, on that high five before we hit record?
No, I thought I rebroke it in the pool this morning, but I keep thinking that I've done that. It twinges and then it's all right.
Right.
So we're all good.
Good.
We're fine.
So yeah, you go big on sport training.
Yeah.
You got a team going here in Edinburgh. What do you do? I'm always amazed by this group that you go for and that you started and you ran.
I've no idea how it got to where it is. So I guess some background really. So in triathlon, you have the kind of just people who do triathlon, and they're usually involved in clubs, or they might train on their own.
Yeah.
If they've got enough money, they might have a private coach. That's fine. They kind of they do triathlon. They might not even call themselves triathletes, but they like to swim, bike, and run. And then at the other end of the scale, you've got elite performance guys and girls that you'd see on the telly, the Brownlees or Vicky Holland winning Olympic medals. And that's that professional side of triathlon. And the professional side doesn't run very deep. So you're only looking at sort of, a few dozen, maybe 100 guys and girls in the world who are making any money through triathlon. So it's not like there's not thousands of professional triathletes out there.
Yeah.
So then in between the club level athletes at one end of the scale and then the professionals at the other end, you've got this age group system, and you can go to a world championship or a European championship representing your country in your 5-year age group, and that means that if you're a developing wannabe kind of pro, then you can be doing well age group stuff in the kind of 18 category or in the 20 to 24 category, or there's a home for you there to start developing your skills. Similarly, if you're my dad and you get into triathlon at 58 because you want to understand this thing that your son's got into, then you can find that you quite like it, develop, and at 62 go to your first European championships in the 60 to 64 category.
Okay.
So that's the kind of structure of triathlon. I'd been one of these age groupers caught in the middle, kind of a bit better than the type of athlete that you might find in a club, but nowhere near ever going to get sponsored or go pro or make any money from it, but loved it. In my head, a professional. Yeah. In my body, really very amateur. And
what's that like? In your head, you love the idea of it, or
no? In my head, this is difficult because it's going to go out into the public sphere. But in my head, I feel like I'm an Olympic athlete. The way Olympic athletes talk about what they do and how they do it and their mindset and their discipline and the way they structure their lives, that just rings true to me and how I think. It's just that they do it in the housing of a body that allows them to perform the best in the world, and I, for many reasons, am nowhere near that skilled, talented, fit, able, whatever it might be. But the way I think feels like the same as what I see performance athletes, is how I see performance athletes thinking.
That makes sense. I mean, that's comes off really clear from you when you talk and when you hang out. Like, I love that. I really appreciate that. You come over like, this is what I've put my life to. This is how I think, how I focus. This is what I'm interested in. This is how I train myself. This is how I treat my body. This is how I look at stuff. So it doesn't, I don't think it sounds strange. I think that makes total sense of how you show up, mate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. Thank you. And I guess there was a point for me where I realised, okay, so I'm doing this age group thing. I've done all right. I'm never going to be as good as I could be. I feel like I've been in the sport for a while and did a degree in sports science and other qualifications and worked as a sports scientist and nutritionist for a while. And I thought, I want to coach. Like, I feel like I've got this body of knowledge and I've got something in my head, like that's an attitude and an awareness of how either the pros work or how people can get the most out of themselves. I want to share that. I want to coach. So how can I coach? Because the problem is that there is no money in this middle bit of triathlon. So I felt like I wanted to support age groupers like me who were struggling to find the support they needed from the club system. The club system is excellent, by the way, and especially here in Edinburgh. Like, there's some amazing clubs with some amazing coaches doing some brilliant stuff, and I have never ever wanted to tread on their toes or cross over with anything they're doing. But I recognised that there was these age groupers that just needed that bit more support, maybe couldn't afford a one-to-one kind of professional coach, and we're never going to get the sponsorship or support from the governing body. So could I produce a professionalised training environment for amateur athletes? And that was the challenge. Could I make it work? And the big stumbling block really was, I guess, finding someone crazy enough to take on that challenge, which I got a good nudge from someone who worked for the governing body at the time and has been an incredible support ever since. And he said, look, just go on, try and do it. And then the other kind of logistical stumbling block was that to make it affordable for the athletes, you have to cover a vast amount of cost to run something like the squad I run. To make that affordable for the athletes, you have to find sponsorship to cover the thousands of pounds.
What are the costs that what does it take cost-wise to?
And predominantly it's facility hire, and most of that is pool hire. So pool hire is phenomenally expensive. I mean, we have 3 lanes on a Tuesday and 2 lanes on a Friday for 2 hours each week, and that's going to set you back £500 a month.
Wow.
You know, at the Commonwealth Pool here in Edinburgh, which is a great location because it's right in the centre of the city and it's a world-class swimming venue. Right. So you've got to find that money, and then we're in Scotland, so we can't ride outside in the winter and in the dark because these are amateur athletes. They work 9 to 5 or through the day, so the sessions are early in the morning, late at night. So we need to turbo train on stationary turbos indoors. So where's the facility for that? So you have to hire that facility. Has everyone got a turbo? Are they going to be able to bring it to training? Probably not. Okay, so we've got to buy a load of turbos. And then Meadowbank, the athletics track, is shut at the moment, but previously, where are we going to do our athletics training? We do it at the track. Well, I wanted this to be a professional environment, so I wanted to pay for the athletes to come in. So that was something that I set up, so I was paying for each of their £5 track entry, every week. And all of that is going to total up to 12 to 15 grand a year to support 15 to 20 athletes. And if I want to make any kind of income, you have to find someone to fund that and to find someone to sponsor that. And that was the big challenge, and that's probably the reason why the setup I have is quite unique, because I managed I feel like God gifted me someone, a millionaire triathlete who lives just outside of Edinburgh, who wanted to support it.
Brilliant.
He gave us the money to make the vision a reality and has continued to support it.
How long have you been running it now?
So this is the 5th season. Right.
That's class. That's really class. When you were doing that, like, why did you go to the bother? Like, what was it in you that made you think, I want to support amateur athletes and get sponsorship and make a professionalized environment? Why not just become a private coach for some high flying folks? Or what is it in you that made you want to hit this level?
It's a good question. It's fair to say that if I'd have known the work and the stress and the worry that was involved, or would be involved, I wouldn't have done it. But I think that's probably the same for maybe everyone who's ever managed to achieve something that they didn't expect to be able to.
Yeah.
And you can't see all of those hurdles. So you just have to go into it. The thing that originally motivated it, I suppose, was I wanted to create the thing that I never had.
Right.
I desperately wanted to be a professional. I still do. I still want to go to an Olympics.
Yeah. Why don't you?
Because I'm never going to be good enough. But, I still want to go to an Olympics as an athlete.
That'd be nice.
I want to be that pinnacle.
Uh-huh.
That's not going to happen. So I wanted that experience of being as professional as possible, taking my sport seriously. And that was something that I couldn't do because I didn't have the means and the support and everything. But I could potentially do that for other people. Mm-hmm. And I thought, let's create the thing that I wanted for other people. Yeah. And let's just see if it's possible. And I guess that was it. Just could I do it? And I think there's a big part of me that when I was younger, I didn't want to take on any challenges because I didn't think that I could achieve anything. I didn't feel confident enough, like I had the skills, like I was, I don't know, just that I didn't have anything to offer. Mm-hmm. And then at some point, that started to change. And I started to realise that maybe I could, like there was nothing special about other people I saw achieving big things. I thought, well, if they can, then maybe I can. And actually, it's not about having the skill, it's about having the attitude of, how can I go and find the thing that I need? If it's more knowledge or if it's more support or if it's more anything, just if you're hungry enough and you can find the answers to your questions, then you can achieve what you want to achieve. And I just got to a point in my life where I was brave enough to back myself for the one moment to think, let's try and make this happen. And then as soon as it was happening, I was on that train and I was just a passenger almost with everyone else. And the first at least 2 years were basically a 2-year panic attack of just trying to keep up with this thing that I'd started and not fall off the back and ruin what I felt like I was holding the hopes and dreams of the athletes, in the palm of my hand, and like I must do everything I can not to drop them. The first 2 years were ridiculously hard.
Right. So what was it change when you were younger? I mean, what were you like when you were younger then that meant something changed? What was that journey?
Okay, I don't know. Good question. I was, for whatever reason, I'm very different when I was younger to how I am now. Very unconfident. I guess I'm dyslexic, and I'm not dyslexic in a like lots of people have struggled with that a lot more than I do. Mm-hmm. But it affected my coordination a lot. So my struggle with it was very visual. I'd go and try and play football with my friends and the ball would come to me and I'd swing the wrong leg and fall over. It was that kind of thing. And for whatever reason, I didn't feel confident as a child and as a younger person. I felt like maybe I didn't, like looking back, I suppose, I don't know, just felt like I was a bit different to everyone else. That's probably a really stereotypical thing to say. Okay. But I wasn't confident, and I was a bit of a kind of blew in the wind of life. Right. I just, you look at old videos of me when I was a kid, and it looks like I'm just, I don't know,
just hanging out on the side.
Yeah, like in my own like little world thing going on. And anyway, I wasn't confident. My dad is wonderful. We have a great relationship, but he was incredibly successful at what he did and does. An engineer, pre-war historic cars. Just an amazing engineer, amazing skill. And I knew I could never live up. I felt like I could never live up to what he'd done and being who he wanted. I don't know. I suppose he probably thought I'd become an engineer one day, and I didn't feel like I could because I couldn't live up to it. Mm-hmm. It's like the Rocky film, isn't it? Like you cast a big shadow. It's that kind of thing. Right. So between the dyslexia and the not feeling like I could maybe live up to that standard that my dad had set, I don't know. I'm not giving a very coherent answer at all. But I was a bit lost.
Sure. Yeah.
I was a bit lost.
What changed then? What age were you in? Something started to shift?
So I finished school after GCSEs down in England. So just 15, 16 in that summer. And then I went to college and I did a sports science college course because, well, I like sport.
Yeah.
Do that. And then after that, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. Still a bit lost. So went and worked for a Christian sports charity in Northampton. Did that for a year. It was good. I had a lot of fun, but I was still a bit lost. Didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. But while I was there, I met a girl who I started to do athletics, started to do some track, sprinting, and that started to give me some kind of a discipline. That was the first time I discovered training. That was the first time I discovered this notion of, okay, if I put more in here, I get more out.
Yeah.
If that person does it that way and I do it better, I get better results than they do. If they're doing something and I can't do it yet, I just need to figure it out and I can get to where they are. Yeah. All of a sudden, everything started to make sense. Life made sense through sport. Yeah. I've never said that before, but that's how it feels. Yeah. Life started to make sense through sport. And so first of all, a little bit trampolining and then this track and field, like sprinting, athletics. I met a girl, she was a bit younger than me, she was just applying for uni and she was like, you should apply for uni. I was like, I'm not, like, I could never go to university. University's for clever people. Like, I can't do that. Okay. She was like, you absolutely can apply to some unis. And it was really her who, and years later I wrote to her and said this, you know, it was her that gave me that moment of, okay, look, she sat me down, she filled out the forms with me, I sent them off. A few months later, I'm in London. I'm at an interview at Brunel University, and I've looking up at sporting idols, you know, who I've looked up to, who went there. Right. And I'm thinking, who
went there?
People like at the time. So I was doing track and field, and at the time, Ewan Thomas was a really like successful 400-meter runner, British record holder, and he'd gone there. And James Cracknell, Olympic gold medalist rower, had gone there. Okay. These people, I was like, amazing. They'll never give me a place. And I walked into the interview and I was so nervous, the most nervous I've ever been in my whole life, without any shadow of a doubt. I was shaking, and the lady interviewing me got about 5 minutes in and just went, it's okay, you can relax, we're going to give you a place. Right. And I was like, oh my goodness me. And at that moment, my life, the angle of the direction of my life changed. And so then a few months later, I walk into a lecture theatre and I recognise the guy who's just next to me. And I'm like, who's that? Like, hang on a second. That's Tony Adams, Arsenal footballer who literally lifted the Premiership trophy about 2 months before. And he retired and immediately started a sports science degree on the same course as me. And I suddenly was in a different world. And the world that had started to make sense to me through sport, suddenly everything was about sport. I was studying sports science, I was doing athletics, I was also doing frisbee and other stuff, and everyone around me liked sport. And I started at that point to realise that I could work hard and I could achieve something, and just something changed in me. I think I'd been presented with an opportunity that felt like a second chance, and I was only smart enough to know that I needed to take advantage of it. And I was like, right, so I'm going to work hard for the next 3 years. And I wasn't great at university at all. I'm not that academic. But, you know, I remember someone saying to me halfway through the first year, why are you doing all this work? You only need 40% to pass. And at that point, already, I was like, yeah, but it's not about getting 40%. For me, it's about how much can I learn? Because I've got 3 years here. Yeah. To potentially change my life. And as I say, it was only it was, you know, that girl helping me apply. It was that interviewer giving me a place, and then it was just me realising that this was an opportunity I needed to take, and that turned my life, you know, massively in a different direction to where it would have been before. Right.
It's crazy because it is just like those moments, isn't it? It's, you know, these things aren't made up of long-winded journeys. It often seems that you can pull it back to 3 conversations that like actually have a significant impacting memory in your life, and turn all your decisions after that moment forward.
I think realising that is really key, actually. Because if we can go through life and realise that every single moment might be a moment that changes something really significantly, right? Life can become really interesting, more exciting. And I think that we also can take advantage of opportunities that would have passed us by if we weren't aware of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see the potential in things, and we can just start to push doors
Yeah.
as we walk down this like corridor of life and see what opens and what happens and where we want to go next.
Yeah.
The issue I see in our society is that we just kind of stumble from one day to the next. I think as people, as a society, we just do our thing in the way that we do it.
Yeah.
And we don't lift our eyes up. We don't look out. We don't engage with what's going on around us. And sport taught me that you need to do that, because if you want to be good, you've got to take advantage of every little opportunity that comes your way.
Do you think dyslexia has played an advantageous role in part of that process? And I ask this because I've had conversations with a number of people who are dyslexic, who now express an advantageous side to the way that the mind works, and I get very, very curious about that. What's that experience been for you, looking back on the turning point and on the success now that you're experiencing?
I can understand why people say what they say about being dyslexic and having that little thing that you've got to work through when you're young, because it's one of those little hurdles. Like it is surmountable for most people. It's one of the things that you can get over. You just got to work at it. You've got to work around it. You've got to find your way through it. And it's also something that tends to manifest itself early on in life. So it's something you have to figure out. It's like almost an adult thing you have to figure out as a kid.
Okay.
So it can be really, really formative. For me, it was mainly just a problem, like in my life. Like I don't look back at it and then play the fiddle about it, because it wasn't that big. And I also don't look at it and go, oh, it made me. Mm-hmm. It was something that was a fairly significant issue, I suppose, when I was younger, and something that I struggled with. I suppose one of the things that it's been quite good for is that, especially I'm definitely a perfectionist.
Right.
I strive, particularly in my work and in my sport. Like I strive for perfection. I feel like there is a way to do things, and we should always be shooting for that.
Yeah.
And that can sometimes be quite crippling. What my experience of dyslexia has given me is the fact that, do you know what, I can't spell, and I have to write in public a lot.
Right.
And I'm going to spell stuff wrong all the time. I'm really sorry. Like I am trying. I have tried. I'm better than I would have been. But it takes away that notion that today everything is going to be perfect.
Okay, yeah.
It's going to be my best, but it's not going to be perfect. And actually, I think for me, that's quite an important lesson. I've recently been reflecting, because I'm doing a high performance coaching award, and I have the assessment in like 10 days. So I've recently been reflecting on my journey. Such an overused word. Why isn't there a better one? But anyway, my coaching life, and how I progressed through that. One of the things is that I guess initially I just thought everything has to be perfect. This coaching environment has to be British cycling. It has to be Team Sky. It has to be, everything perfect. And what I've realised is that it can't be, and it doesn't have to be. And just the little thing of just knowing that, my grammar and spelling isn't going to be perfect is actually all right, because it just taints it a little bit straight away. So then you're like, okay, it's fine. My best is good enough. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah. There's a huge thing that I think I've experienced through music, which was, what are the distinctions between excellence and perfectionism? And it seems like perfectionism seems to show up that if there's one thing wrong, then it's never good enough. And even if it's your best, like your best is never good enough. And it can pull out some good learning, but seems to me that the attitude of being excellent means that you can bring your best, whatever level that is. And as long as you know that is the best that I brought, that is the best I could bring there, and I'm going to learn from the mistakes, then actually I can draw deep satisfaction out of that and get up with more interest, more curiosity the next day, rather than being guilt or failure in what my passion has been. And because passion isn't going to cause perfection, is it? Like, no. Passion is going to push I mean, it'd be worrying if you had a perfect environment, because then you wouldn't make it any better. But you have a passion to improve people. You have a passion to see people get beyond perfect by actually saying, we thought this was what it was going to look like. I thought Team Sky was the best that it could be, but actually I've created a different way that has brought access to these people.
Yeah.
You've got something like that gets beyond perfectionism.
There is no perfectionism as well,
right.
because I think you have to realise that who's rating this environment or this bit of music or this piece of art or this whatever. All right, I might think it's perfect, but half the world might think it's absolutely rubbish.
Yeah.
So is it perfect? Depends who we're asking.
Yeah.
So perfectionism, it doesn't exist. It immediately doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So all you can do is strive for your own excellence, for either yourself, if it is something personal, or the group that you're working with.
Yeah.
Or maybe a combination of both. I think that striving to do your best and achieve excellence is something that's something in my life which I'm sure is going to continue to be a little thread that runs through my life forever.
How does that affect the way that you make decisions then? You got an interest around the decision making that people do and the psychology of that. How do you go about making the decisions that you make as you're aware of your passion for people and desire for things to be better and better?
Not sure. Yeah, I don't know whether I've ever thought about it, the link between kind of striving for excellence and decision making, but I suppose that in my life, someone once said to me who I used to work with, you can have good, better or best.
Right.
Okay. It was in the context of nutrition at the time. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have dinner. I've just done a big training session. Do I want good? Could I make it better? Is that the best that it could be? And I think that there's an element where there's probably a more subconscious than conscious process in my decision making where I will always try and achieve that best next step, whatever that might be. And I think that carries into very little areas of my life that are quite mundane in terms of Charlotte, my wife, works at the hospital, so she comes home later on a Monday and Tuesday from her shift. I could leave the house in one state of affairs. I could leave it in a better one, but I'll try and leave it in the best one that I can in the time with the energy that I possibly have.
Yeah.
I will try and wring as much as I can out of every day.
Yeah.
I will try and make every training session as good as it can be. I will try and eat as well as I can be. I'll try and look after my body as well as possible. I think it is just that awareness that, just wanting to strive to kind of optimize everything as well as I can. And that's with individual decisions, but then that's going to sit in a context of your whole life. So if you obsess about everything to the point that it's just crippling pressure, your whole life isn't going to be as good.
Yeah.
So it's how can I optimize the balance between these little tiny decisions that I make day to day, the thousands of different decisions, maybe millions that you make every single day, and then how they come together in terms of how you feel about your whole life. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's probably how I go about things. I want to go to bed at end of every day knowing, I made the right balance of decisions that today feels like it was the best it could be. Yeah. And I want to be able to say that at the end of every week and every month and every year and on my deathbed. Exactly the same.
Wow. And do you track that kind of a process? Imagine, I hear people like Jim Collins, like they literally have a +2, +1, 0 system of how his day was, and then he stores that up over. Do you track that, or do you just hold that innately as this is how my life is working right now? How do you work that?
I think I don't track it in some kind of a tick box, kind of a little bit more numbersy kind of system. I definitely do hold it internally. I am aware of that constantly. I'm aware of all of those decisions. And to the point that to get that overall life balance, there are sometimes when I need to switch that off. Because there are sometimes I need to take a break from being me.
Right.
And I have to do that quite regularly.
Oh, wow. Where do you go to have a break from being you?
Well, that's evolving as well. So it's interesting because, so maybe over the course of the previous last few years, that would just be, I just need to sit in front of the telly. I just need to think about nothing other than what's flickering around the screen in front of me. Over the course of last year, so 2018, I just started to find that massively frustrating. Like I spent a year basically still doing it, but not finding it satisfying, because I felt like I wasn't taking a break for myself as well as I could. So now how can I optimize the rest? Which is crazy, isn't it? I'm not optimizing, getting away from the optimizing stuff.
Meta optimizing.
Oh man, welcome to my brain. My brain is a loud place, Mark. It really is.
I'm enjoying hanging out in there right now. This is good.
Wow. And so I was like, how can I do this better? How can I relax better? How can I escape better? What do I enjoy doing? When I take a holiday, I don't go to the apartment in Spain and watch the telly. I enjoy not watching the telly. So what am I doing instead?
Right.
I'm reading. I'm maybe talking to my wife. Or I'm doing a bit drawing. I went away a couple of years ago. I did some drawing for like a week.
Wow.
So then like this Christmas just gone, I was like, I want these books. And I got a giant dot to dot. It's like 1,000 dots per image per page.
What?
It's Marvel superheroes. Mark, you'd love it.
You got a Marvel dot to dot?
I've got a Marvel adult dot to dot book. Okay. So there's that, and then there's like
I get signed copy, please.
They're not that good, and they're dot to dot, which is appalling, isn't it? It's like not being able to do painting by numbers. And just a few other things that I could start to invest time in that was easy, that was simple, that was still escapism, but that felt like I was getting away from the hustle and bustle of my mind a little bit more while still being productive. So I don't still have that much time. It's like grabbing an hour on a Monday and a bit of time on a Tuesday. But the other thing is we ban TV Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday nights in our house.
Right. Wow.
So like
you just don't watch it.
Just don't watch it. Just don't put it on.
Yeah.
And it's actually really freeing. Like I think we've talked before about the idea that sometimes when you confine yourself, you liberate yourself.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of just going, I won't do this thing, and actually by not doing this thing, I feel freer.
Yeah. I love this idea of creative limitation and limiting yourself to produce something more creative. So sometimes it's a technique used in music production or where you say, okay, let's try this again, but let's not hit these certain parts of the kit, or let's just take them away. Or I'm gonna, I'll break a string on a guitar and not instantly go to replace the string. I'll try and figure out different things to play, and it just changes what you do. So you put a limitation on yourself for the purpose of seeing what it creatively punches and pushes out of you. I think, choosing to switch the telly off, that's a great one. Right.
And it's been all right.
Okay.
It's been fine. I felt this year, let's talk about this year. We're in just beginning of March 2019. When I say this year, I mean this season. So that started, the beginning of, or mid-October. And this last kind of 5 months has felt really balanced, really productive, really enriching. And really the only major changes have just been that balance in terms of my kind of away time. That said, one of the other things to get balance is that I still make sure that there is some time every week where I do just chill out. Like usually Saturday night, I don't worry what I eat and I don't worry what I watch. And I still actually generally make good decisions, because then I'm looking forward to the thing that I'm going to choose to watch, because I've saved it up. I might not have been able to watch it for the rest of the week.
Right.
And I've got that one opportunity to eat kind of whatever I want, but I've increasingly realised that the stuff I thought I wanted, like the junk food, is actually not as It's not as much of an investment as actually just cooking like some really nice food and giving that some kind of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, somehow it's precipitated better decisions just even in those moments. So
You have such a commitment to what I would see as like discipline and structure, reflection on how to do things better, and I get really curious what the passion that lies behind that is, because like it seems you've got a huge commitment to all those actions and even to the rest from those actions to restore. What's the passion for in you? What are you doing all this for? Like, what are you believing? What do you believe you're doing all this for?
It's entirely my faith. So I am a completely different person to the person that I would be if I didn't have the Christian faith that I have and feel like I've been saved by Jesus dying in my place. And if I didn't have that faith, you wouldn't recognize me as a person. I wouldn't live here because I wouldn't be married to the person I'm married to.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be doing sport
Yeah.
because the discipline would have been too hard. And I wouldn't care what I ate.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't value my body, because I wouldn't value myself. I have an addictive personality that I channel in a very, I think, positive way.
Yeah.
That addictive energy would have gone in a very destructive path. I can't think that I would have a good relationship with my parents. I think I would have continued to let them down quite significantly.
Okay.
And you wouldn't recognize me. I am a completely different person. It's entirely to do with my faith. And I don't get to talk about that very much because in my professional life, whilst everything that drives who I am, as you said, and the squad that I run as part of my work and who I am in my marriage or who I am as a father is from my faith. In the working context, I don't get to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it too much. I don't want to kind of, preach when I should be coaching or any of those things, but it's there, and it sits behind everything I do because I think some people look at religion or Christianity or the stories that they might have heard about from the Bible or they might read, and it's like some kind of far off thing, and I've never felt that. I've always felt like it's something that's very, very recent and relevant. And do you know what? If it's true, a guy, Jesus, who was God, died for me. Now, if I was walking through my life just as my life and something happened which meant that someone right there in front of me died for me, they pushed me out of the way of traffic and they took the impact from the bus, how would I live my life? If the last thing they said was, do good with your life or something like that, live your life for me, how would I live my life? Well, I would live it completely differently, wouldn't I? And that's what I feel has happened. And I want to be able to talk about this far more eloquently than I'm sure I am, but God created me in this world with the opportunities that I have around me. I would be a fool if I didn't utilize every single one of them.
Right.
And wring the last little bit out of it.
Yeah.
And do everything that I possibly could to honour that love and that blessing and that grace that's been given to me. I am, every single day I wake up and my life is a carefully packaged gift with a lovely ribbon on top of it. And I get to rip it open and live it. Why on earth would I waste that by not doing everything I could with that gift? That to me just seems wasteful and foolish and not how I want to be or who I want to be. So do you know what? I push myself.
Yeah.
And I make myself tired. And I live in a way that is disciplined and that is hard sometimes. I don't want to do it. I'm in a great period of my life at the moment, but I still woke up on Wednesday 2 days ago and just didn't know how I was even going to get out of the bedroom. Yeah. But I did. And then I figured out how to get downstairs, and then I figured out how I was going to coach that session, and then I coached that session, and then I had my... Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Just everything you can in service for the greatest thing that I've ever been given, which is this life and an eternity in heaven.
So yeah, you really take the aliveness that's brought you and turn it to energy, I think, which is curious because sometimes religion or the distinction of a faith within that is something that is like a kind of, it means I can live however I want, or it just means I've got this thing to blame for the problems in the world, and it's got this way that I can sort of judge people or judge other systems and other folks. I find it really interesting that you've just taken this faith and you've like turned it into energy and turned it into drive and a joyful way of taking responsibility for your life, and what you can contribute to it. I think it's really, really interesting, and you don't hear that an awful lot. And I think it's really. I see people who have a passion for sport and training, and they can be this fascinating fusion of where their faith gets expressed through sport or training very clearly, and it seems to sort of multiply discipline, multiply the hope for results, and a passion and a drive for other people. So
it comes, I think, as well. Like I'm not good at quoting chapter and verse, and I don't know how helpful that is to people, to be honest. But one of the few verses that I can quote is John 10:10. I have come that you might have life to the full.
Right.
And it's not that you may live. It's that you might have life to the full. Life being this active, joyful, energizing, colourful, wonderful party, carnival of a thing.
Yeah.
But that's not just going to happen.
Yeah.
That you may have life to the full if you put the work in, if you respond to the opportunity that you've been given. And I want to respond. I want to respond every day.
Yeah.
I want to figure this thing out as best as I can, so that when I die and go to heaven, I can arrive at the pearly gates and God can say, "Well done, good and faithful servant."
Right.
Do you know what? You screwed up more than you got right, but I appreciate that you did everything you could with what I gave you.
Right. Oh. What's the thing about nutrition that you're seeing? Because you just hear more and more people leaning towards this now, particularly when health conditions don't have clear medical outs, and people are trying to manage their life better through nutrition. What is this? What is the epidemic that's the problem there?
I might not answer the question directly, but I think we're moving into a really transitional period of nutrition, where we're starting to realise that nutrition is actually something that can make a difference to the health of the nation. And we've probably been too focused on treating the sick rather than making sure that people don't get sick in the first place.
Okay.
And that nutrition is a massive part of that.
Right.
It really is true to say we are who we are what we eat.
Yeah.
And if you want to be a healthy person who lives a really long time and doesn't get sick, then you have to watch what you put in your body. It's as simple as that. I mean, at the end of the day, what are we made of? We're made of the water that we drink, the sunlight that shines down on us, and the food that we put in our body. That's pretty much it. So who do you want to be? Because it's going to be governed by what you put in your mouth.
Right.
So there are, at the moment, we're at this point where I think people are starting to realise that, and they're starting to knock about the ideas of, okay, so what does this optimal diet look like?
Right.
What should we be getting everyone to eat? And the answers that are coming are having impacts on manufacturers and food suppliers that are going to be alienated by those things that we're finding out. And so then there's a bit of a backlash from that. And then there also has to be a re-education of the public about the importance of nutrition, because a lot of people are realising this, but it's not known in the mass society or culture yet. And then we have to re-educate the medical profession, because you can go and study to be a doctor for 5 years and you do 2 days maybe I think 2 days
On nutrition.
On nutrition. If you're in America, there's a few years ago, I think it's in 2006, they put together a governmental policy that all medical degrees had to teach nutrition.
Like as a module.
Because as a module. I think it was. I've got 2 weeks worth, but it might have been 2 days. And then they decided they didn't want to. Universities collectively decided that was a bit too much, so they decided to make it optional. So then this government policy became optional, and then on a review of that government policy and how well it had been implemented a few years later, it was found that I think 2 organisations had taught about like 1 hour to their medical students over the course of the entire degree.
That was it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But giving someone a serving of broccoli every day, someone who has had breast cancer or prostate cancer, you give them a serving of broccoli every day, it reduced their risk of getting that cancer growing back by 30 to 50%, which is more than the leading cancer drug
bowl of broccoli
would do. Bowl of broccoli, that's it.
Mate.
But we're not prescribing that.
Right.
Because no one financially wins off of broccoli.
Well, so I get that this shouldn't become an either or, and there should just be more and more and more things that should affect your system, from the way you think, the way you're eating, the drugs that you're taking, the way that you're treating your body with exercise. Why hasn't nutrition logically become friends with drugs and medication? Is it the money thing, you reckon? Is it just hard to prove? Why is it not more common sense?
There is a few things there, and I have to be completely open as well. You know, I'm not working in the medical profession, and I'm not a doctor. My master's degree was in nutrition, with a particular slant on nutrition for public health. So I have some experience and knowledge there, and there probably hasn't been a day since 2005 that I haven't, done some kind of research or reading or thinking about nutrition. So there is a depth of knowledge there, but it doesn't come from being a doctor. As best as I can work out, there's a lot of just tradition. Things are done. Things are in a lot of walks of society. Things are done the way they're done because that's the way that they've been done. So it takes a long time to turn those ships around. There's the other aspect that in the medical profession, the types of trials that happen for drugs are like intervention trials.
Yeah.
And it's quite difficult to do some of those things with nutrition and get definite results that then will change the opinion of the medical profession. And even if you can do a study, you need study after study after study after study on every single issue before you're going to change attitudes.
Sure. Yeah.
Then there's also the money side and the commercial side of medical care, which is different in the UK to in America. America, there's a lot of... you get the impression that there's a lot of lobbying, to call it one thing, or financial coercion that happens at a governmental level from the suppliers of these medications. But there's a company in Germany that have just started to produce a broccoli pill. I mentioned broccoli earlier.
Wow.
So they've started to produce a broccoli pill because the weight of evidence is so significant that people should eat broccoli to help get over cancer or to stay in remission. It's like, great, well, we'll make a pill.
Right. People are more used to taking pills and boiling up a pot of broccoli and eating the whole thing.
You could just have broccoli, but there's no money in broccoli. So the drug company makes a broccoli pill to sell so that then that industry continues to be financed. Yeah. And, no big medical company is going to put itself out of business just because there's some, significant research that actually what we eat is more important and more effective than the drugs that they're pumping out. Right. So there's that side of things as well. But I think it changing attitudes takes generations.
Yes.
It takes at least a couple of generations. And so you've got to be teaching this stuff to kids in schools. You have to be teaching it in medical degrees. And that's going to take a little while to shift. And, we're talking about stuff that really has come out, almost in only the last kind of decade. Yeah. Yeah, at really kind of general level. So it'll just take a while for those attitudes to change.
Right, and there's just so many stories about it. So I know part of my own story was with chronic fatigue, and so I had that from age 10 to 14. They after a couple of years of me just feeling like the plug had been pulled, they gave it a name. They said, hey, you've got ME. Like, great, it's got a name. What do I take? And, they didn't have anything then. And you're like, okay, right, what are the options then? So you try everything because you want to get better. Like, I was, 12. And, okay, someone gives you a copper bracelet, says it's going to stimulate something. I'm going to wear a copper bracelet or stick something in my shoes or under my pillow. Let's give that a whirl. And you try different stuff and you get open-minded because the thing that you'd rely on doesn't have an answer yet. And, speaking to a nutritionist then, they propose a possibility of what's going on and they say, change your diet in this way, take some of these different supplements, see what happens. And we just had story after story of people who went to see this person, and what they can say is, my life looked like this 2 years ago, where I couldn't handle light. I was laying in my bed for 9 hours a day. A walk to the end of the landing was a big deal. I mean, I had that. A walk to the end of the driveway was a big deal some days. Mm-hmm. And I went from that to feeling like the fittest person in the room, full of energy, absolutely buzzing. So, and I guess it's not that I have some kind of factual evidence of it. I just have my experience, Mm-hmm. What did it do? Did it sort my head out and energize me? If so, great, let's do that. And I just get really curious about that because there seems no need to take away from the traditional roots of medicine we have, but this is all just an addition to the system. So
yeah, and it's in addition to this. It's an addition to the system, which is going to save the system.
Yes,
because the NHS is going to fold. It's going to. It at the moment is buckling under the weight of just type 2 diabetes. So everything else changed nothing apart from type 2 diabetes, which largely is a lifestyle condition.
Yeah.
You change that through diet and exercise, which you can in the majority of cases, not in every single one, in the majority, and you put billions back into the NHS, which will save it.
Right.
That's all we need to do.
Yeah.
Eat better, move better, no type 2 diabetes,
yeah.
Save the NHS.
Right.
Simple. So we can save that system that we rely on so that it can support people in the way that it needs to support people, yes. And not just propping up all of the people that actually shouldn't be there,
yeah,
and that it shouldn't need to support. It's just that we did a really bad job of educating them, okay. And we were really slow to take on board the evidence that was there right in front of us.
Right. It does make sense that if we are human bodies and we are so similar in terms of our makeup, then really, like say, the only differences we can generally get into us is how much of the sunlight are we getting in, how much of the water are we putting in, and what other carbons are we entering into our system, and we will have dramatic effects through that. Mm-hmm. I saw this this documentary and heard about a number of ways that people who had cancer, like stage 4 cancer in the liver, recovered, and this doctor started to say there was like 75 different ways they identified people who'd had radical remission, and they said they didn't all do these 75, but they pulled it down to about 9. I'm interested what your take on these would be. So they pulled this 9 down to say people who had radical remission from cancer radically changed diet. From their perspective, they took control of their health. They followed their intuition. They were using herbs and supplements, releasing suppressed emotions, increasing positive emotions, embracing social support, deepening their spiritual connection, and they had a strong reason for living. What's your take on that from your experience in nutrition and the way you think and in that spirituality?
Well, we're all going to die of something.
Yeah.
So what's going to kill us? And before you were reading the list, I kind of saw you like preparing the question, and I thought, right, okay, what's he going to mention? He's going to mention exercise,
right?
Diet,
right?
Loneliness, stress, and purpose. That was the list.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, maybe. Exercise, nutrition, loneliness, stress, and purpose. like having a purpose in life.
Yeah.
Those were the 5 that I thought maybe you'd pull out, and I think that some of those, I think that essentially summarises those 9. Because there was a couple of points that I would probably summarise on the same stress balance. Yeah. And largely those are those things. I think those are the things that ultimately kill us. And if, nutrition, I understand why people say, oh, it's really, really, really complicated. Exercise, I can understand why people go, oh, it's hard work, and where do I start, and what kind of exercise should I do? But actually, just boil it down. Do you know what? Just actually do some movement that you enjoy, and that'll help stress. Do it with some people, then you won't be lonely. Have some kind of purpose, so maybe pick some kind of a goal. It doesn't have to be to do with the exercise or the nutrition, but just pick some kind of goal in life, so you kind of know where you're going and you're not lost. You have a direction. You'll need a direction. We need a purpose. That's what we feed off. And so I think that they're the big 5, and then the other one that was the addition, the 6th that I should have had, is that maybe that kind of spiritual connection, and that realization that we can have a purpose but also be part of something bigger. I think it's a really interesting list. I'd not come across it before, but in my own reflections, they were the kind of 5 sort of areas that I would come up with. And they're the things. They're the big wins. There's no magic bullet to some kind of utopian life and perfectionism that doesn't exist. But there is some fairly easy wins, and they are those 5, 6 things. But we're not. Look at our society. How good are we at nailing those?
Right.
Well, let's look at, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, I've never thought about it before, but let's look at loneliness. Young people are more engaged with society now through social media than they've ever been, and so they are more lonely because we don't interact with real people in the way that we used to. So we're setting up a generation that's going to be lonely with maybe poorer social skills. I'm not demonizing social media, but I'm saying
we're going to learn how to use it.
And how well do we look after our old people? Well, compared to Asian culture, not very well at all. You retire, you're past it. If you want to keep working, maybe work on the checkout in Tesco. We don't celebrate the wisdom of our old people in the way that we should do. Those people should be in prime jobs, prime positions, because they've got 30, 40 years of wisdom and experience that we don't have, sitting here in our 20s or 30s, So that would give people purpose and direction, and it would deal with loneliness, and it would and then you look at stress. We've talked about this before, away from being recorded, but we feel the pressure to live in a certain way. Why? Like, where does that come from? Or this idea that we have to follow this particular path of life. Maybe we don't need to do that. Sure, you've got to pay the bills, you've got to earn some money, you have to support the people around you, but are you doing the thing that gives you value and purpose? And I think the amount of stress that we create for ourselves that can just be eliminated almost by making the decision to eliminate it, that would be tremendously powerful. Nutrition and exercise, I think easy wins. It's pretty obvious that if you eat rubbish all the time, you're not going to function as well as you could do if you ate whole food, real food that's not been processed, manufactured, put in a packet that has ingredients that you can't understand on the back of the packet. Fine. Exercise, again, just move.
Just move.
In a way that you enjoy.
It's
not about being a triathlete. I love triathlon. I love sport. I love Olympism and elite performance. But at the end of the day, just go and do some dancing.
Just walk.
Go and clean a neighbour's house. Who's a bit ill or something like that. Go, just walk. That'd be fine. They're my reflections, I guess, on those kind of areas.
Mate. It's really good. It's really, really good. So this is fun. Let's do it again.
It's been good.
This is really good.
Are we coming to an end?
Yeah, I feel
like
so.
We could do it for another ages.
I know.
Anyone listening is probably like, whoa, they've turned off.
No way. This was quality, mate. And I think there's just loads. There's just loads of what you said that I'm taking away. I love those 5 that you've pulled it down to. That's class. And it really taps into that bigger purpose that you're chatting about, which gets me excited. So where can people find you? Find where you're chatting?
So I guess if you on Instagram, try Coach Joel, or you can look at the squad and what we do. Hartree Jets Try is a place to go. Just Google Hartree Jets. Hartree Estates is our sponsor, so Hartree Jets, Joel Enoch Triathlon Squad. What an egotistical title for the squad that I am.
That makes sense. Joel Enoch runs a triathlon squad.
There we go. My mum came up with it, so it's got to be fine.
Smart.
Yeah, that's probably where to find us.
Okay, great. Mate, loved it.
I'll go with that good hand.
I've got the good hand this time. Joel Enoch.
Thank you so much for experiencing this week's episode 2. It means so much if you'd be up for leaving us a review, subscribing on your podcast app, and sharing this show. Thanks, everyone.